to subscribe to the thread, and I think what should happen is that you'll get notifications when someone replies to you. I haven't done that myself, so I'm not quite sure how it works. If you want that to happen but you can't make it work, let me know, or you can Google Blackboard, discussion board, subscribe to thread or something. We can make it work if you want it to. I've just been so pleased with the quality and the genuineness of the discussion going on the discussion board. So many responses back and forth, and really, really thoughtful, well-researched, well-written posts. So congratulations to you all. You're doing a great job. It's going even better than I expected. You will... Do you have one due next week? Yes, you have reading questions and a discussion board post with kind of a provocative question. So I look forward to seeing what you say in response to that. Okay, so there were some questions or people pointing out that this book was published in 1996, which amazingly was 20 years ago. So I wanted to provide a little bit of context about that. He goes into the very first page, the social, political, cultural context that he's responding to, which was, it's sometimes known as the culture wars now. It was in the late 80s, early 90s. Debates that really centered on universities and curriculum, especially English curriculum, that people saw as being too politically correct and too grounded in identity politics. So you'd have conservative politicians and academics and writers who would write about how terrible it is that you could get a college degree and you didn't have to take Shakespeare anymore. And like PC culture kind of driving, like being too influential on college campuses. And there were some restrictions on speech that went overboard. And being, but it was rooted out of trying to be respectful of people who had different identities, and questioning the hegemony of the time. So it was like a kind of boiling national debate over what should be on the syllabus of an English class in a way. Should we only study dead white males, or should we study people of color, women, gay and lesbian literature, other people who weren't supposedly traditionally in the canon. Culture wars, canon wars, sometimes it gets called that too. Sorry, I don't know why my chair is not where I want it to be. So literature and the canon was being questioned, but I did some research on this when I was getting ready for my dissertation, because I thought it was really, I think arguments about literature are really interesting. So the research I did showed that the canon is never stable. As long as English has been a discipline, which you know by now is not all that long, there have been groups of authors and styles of writing and genres that have fallen in and out of favor. So the canon is always changing. And Berlin uses the word crisis on that first page. You have encountered that term already. You will continue to encounter it because English, the humanities, the universities are perpetually in crisis. So it kind of makes me laugh when I see that word over and over again. Crisis, crisis, crisis. Okay, so PC culture, identity politics, early 90s. Also related to literature, literary studies, and literature departments in a very concrete sense. He says a lot about this conflict or a binary opposition between literature and rhetoric or composition. And it's true that in the history of English departments, in a lot of cases there was like a hierarchy where literature scholars, people who taught literature, regarded the literary text as being, the best that is thought and said. And that kind of writing is the best writing. These ideas are the best ideas. And what composition teachers teach is just, it's like bad student writing. So who would want to do that? Because the writing is so much different than the writing that we love to read, written by the greats, the authors in the canon. So, and also for a long time, there were no tenure track jobs in writing studies. There were few PhD programs. So the field of literary studies had a high status way before the field of writing studies. And in the 90s, there were a lot of histories of composition and writing studies as a field being written. And I can recommend some other histories if you really think that's interesting. You can do your research project on it also. And they were written by people who maybe they'd started out studying literature, but they got quickly into writing studies and writing program administration. And they had a chip on their shoulder because, frankly, their colleagues in English departments, the literature scholars, would kind of treat them like their field wasn't real or it was not as good. It was just less than literature. So that was more of a problem until the late 90s. It's just been kind of decreasing in severity since then. So he kind of rags on literature a lot, and you can see it as kind of like a defensive move or in response to getting these attacks on his field, rhetoric and composition. The whole conflict is not as much of a problem anymore, but it definitely still is. It depends on the department. It depends on the personalities, the history of the department, the strengths of the department. So there's sometimes with among certain faculty members who might have a history, there might be some regard, like writing studies isn't really a field, it's not very rigorous, or in the opposite direction, literature scholars are too removed from reality. They just like have their nose in books and they don't teach writing. There are all these stereotypes and overgeneralizations. But it was definitely part of Berlin's experience and a lot of other scholars like Sharon Crowley, Robert Connors, Peter Elbow. And we will read something by Peter Elbow later. Anyway, that's part of the context. One of the things that kept coming up, a lot of people responded with which of the three paradigms of English classes they had experienced, and most people either said the liberal paradigm or the social democratic paradigm. But then there's the third one, or the first one, scientific meritocratic scientific paradigm that a lot of people said, I really don't know what this looks like. I haven't encountered it. One of your classmates, Jessica Bowden, gave a really good description of a current incarnation of that kind of paradigm because she teaches at a STEM school, and I think it was a private school. Jessica, you can correct me. But it's really interesting what they do over there. I did want to point out, if you missed it, that there's a term in that section where he describes the meritocratic scientific paradigm, current traditional. It's called current traditional. It got that name in, I want to say, the 70s. So that was the current time, but it was also very traditional because it had persisted since the 19th century, the early 20th century, and really just kind of gotten embedded in textbooks, not updated, not up to date with research, very product-based. And I just finished making the quiz for week 5, and you'll encounter that term again, current traditional. You'll keep encountering it. It's basically everything that was ever bad with composition classes gets called current traditional. So it's basically a paradigm that's based in correctness. Like, you don't need writing to help you figure out what to say or what is true in a situation. And you're not like trying to produce writing that is beautiful. You're just like, you're going to be a manager. You need to be able to write reports. And they need to be correct, and they need to be well structured. So you need to learn how to organize and spell correctly and all those things. So today would be kind of like what's emphasized in technical writing or business writing, like not trying to, kind of not really trying to figure out what a solution to a problem is, but more just like having the content ready to go before you start writing, and then just writing it and making sure it's clear, which is totally subjective, and correct. So I wanted to like kind of flesh out that idea a little bit. And in Berlin's 3 paradigms that he names there, meritocratic, scientific, liberal, and social democratic, are there those right names? You know what I'm talking about. Clearly he prefers the third one, the democratic model. And you will see that in week 5, which I've just been preparing, especially the Fulkerson. Like, there are these 4 things, and I'll describe all of them. It's going to sound like I'm being objective, but really I prefer, whatever. I'll let you figure that out for yourself. You find that a lot. People like making these like divisions, sort of Aristotelian lists or groupings of things, and surprise, the last one they list is their favorite, but they don't really say that. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say in response to your discussion board posts. I'm really looking forward to see how you answer the question I've posed for you for next week, week 4. So you read the second half of Berlin. I'm sparing you a lot of the stuff in the back of the book. So we only read up till here. That's all we read in the book. There's a lot after that. At least one person in their post said, Berlin critiques a lot. He's got a lot of things that he complains about, but he's not really offering solutions. But part of the last section of the book that we're reading, he does describe 2 writing classes that he has taught. And then he has some profiles of programs that he likes in the back of the book. But I want you to observe how much of his writing classes are based on readings, and also that his writing classes are based at Purdue University, a very, very prestigious university. And then the program profiles are also very prestigious universities. So that context absolutely makes a difference. There are reading questions. Start out with the reading tips I give you for the second part of the Berlin book. He's hard to read sometimes, but I made some little images and notes about some people that he mentions. Robert Scholes has a helpful chart, I think, for kind of describing the binaries and hierarchies in a way that he has experienced in English departments. And then a little gloss of Paulo Ferreira's banking model of education, which has really influenced a lot of rhetoric and composition and other progressive teachers over the years. And then some terms to define, etc. So next week, going into February the 8th, you have your reading questions due and your discussion board posts. I'm looking at my syllabus. And then a response post on Wednesday. And I will have your synthesis papers back to you by Wednesday. I'll email them to you, and I'll have notes made off to the side in Microsoft Word. If I remember, I may send them either in doc format or a PDF format so that I'm sure you can see the comments, and you have the option to revise those. So I'll send you the paper with the comments in it. I'll put the grade in Blackboard. If you are unhappy with the grade or you're unhappy with your paper, even though the grade is fine, you can revise it. So I should provide you probably enough comments to make a substantial revision. Just be in touch with me if you want to revise it. And then I have a schedule in the syllabus for when I would like for you to turn that back in.